What do you do, a lot of that, did you ever notice kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Hooray! And it's the girls' model. Oh, I always wanted one of these when I was little.
Seinfeld is the most popular TV show of all time, and from its very first episodes, it had the entire country glued to the screen. When Seinfeld ended, over 76 million Americans simultaneously tuned in to watch the finale, a staggering number that turned the event into an unprecedented television phenomenon. Yet contrary to expectations, not everyone was satisfied. Many viewers expressed disappointment, feeling as though the wave of humour they had once loved had suddenly been blocked. Have you ever wondered why Seinfeld stopped while it was at its peak? Or what backstage secrets were hidden in the series? Were there episodes that almost got cancelled? Which bizarre details contributed to the legend loved by millions of fans? All will be revealed below. 20. The soup Nazi despised Seinfeld for ruining his life. While millions of viewers laughed uproariously at the soup Nazi, in real life, Yeganey did not find it funny at all. He felt utterly humiliated and never forgave Seinfeld. In an interview, Yeganey growled, calling Jerry Seinfeld a clown and criticizing the use of the term Nazi as an incredible disgrace. When a reporter insisted that Seinfeld had made him famous, Yeganey angrily replied, "No, I made him famous. I'm the one who made him known." The story became even more dramatic when Jerry and the crew unexpectedly appeared at Yeganey's soup shop. He immediately erupted in a fury, shouting and forcing Jerry to apologize. Yeganey screamed the iconic line at Jerry, "No soup for you," and kicked the entire crew out. From that moment on, the shop officially banned Seinfeld from entering. Despite Yeganey's anger, the episode's enormous impact could not be stopped. The soup shop became a tourist pilgrimage site, with customers lining up to experience the same strict atmosphere seen on screen. Would you dare to stand in front of the soup Nazi? Let me know what you think. 19. Seinfeld almost got cancelled over the pilot. The pilot of Seinfeld, originally called The Seinfeld Chronicles, almost vanished entirely upon its debut. The first version, titled Good News, Bad News, introduced Jerry Seinfeld to the world, but it was nothing like the show we know today. In the episode, Jerry was thrilled that a woman he happened to meet on the street was moving in with him in New York, only to be shocked to discover she was engaged. Two other shocking details. Kramer was called Kessler, and Elaine was completely absent. When NBC conducted test screenings, the audience reaction was disastrous. Viewers called the show too New York, too Jewish, confusing, and boring. Internal research reports were even harsher, describing the episode as weak and concluding that no audience group was interested in continuing. Some even complained, how could anyone be excited just watching people do laundry? To NBC, this was nearly a death sentence for the fledgling project. Warren Littlefield, then NBC's Vice President of Entertainment, recalled, "That feedback felt like a dagger straight to the heart. Senior executives agreed. The script was dry, the characters lacked appeal, and the mix of Jerry's stand-up with the main story annoyed viewers, especially older audiences." At first glance, Seinfeld was over, before it had even begun. But amid the storm of criticism, an NBC executive named Rick Ludwin saw something different. He believed that the barely noticeable trivialities in the story were precisely what made it unique and decided to take a gamble. Allow only 4 more episodes to air. The number was record-breaking for TV history, but this bold move saved Seinfeld, giving it a chance to prove its worth to the public. Ironically, the weaknesses NBC had criticised became its strengths. When the pilot officially aired in the summer of 1989, audiences didn't just accept it, they were captivated. The seemingly small, trivial, even meaningless details suddenly became the building blocks of one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. 18. George Steinbrenner filmed a scene, but it was cut for not being funny. A little-known fact is that George Steinbrenner, the famous owner of the New York Yankees, once filmed a cameo for the show, He played George Costanza's boss, a character previously mentioned only by name and voice. This scene was filmed during Season 7, aiming to add humour with the appearance of a real-life celebrity. However, when reviewing the footage, Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David realised Steinbrenner's performance wasn't funny. Jerry later shared on The Rich Eisen Show, "He filmed a scene for the show and it was terrible. We couldn't use it. It wasn't funny at all." The scene was completely cut from the episode. Larry David even called Steinbrenner directly to explain the decision. The Yankees owner remained calm, accepting the cut without complaint. From then on, Steinbrenner's character appeared only via Larry David's voice or behind-the-scenes footage, becoming a distinctive comedic figure unaffected by live performance. 17. The original female lead was a waitress named Claire. In the pilot episode of the Seinfeld Chronicles, the female lead was not Elaine Beans. It was Claire, a sharp-witted waitress at Pete's Luncheonette, played by Lee Garlington. From the opening scene, Claire joined Jerry and George at their table, exchanging dialogue as if she were part of the group. She even offered advice and chatted freely like a fourth member. To the audience, she seemed destined to be the series' female lead. But after the first episode, Claire vanished completely. NBC believed a waitress couldn't fully integrate into the group's personal life. She was just behind the counter serving food, and her role was done. Warren Littlefield, NBC executive, explained, "A server would never become their close friend. We needed a female character the audience actually wanted to spend time with." Thus, Claire was replaced by Elaine Beans, a bold, new character fully involved in all the group's chaotic adventures. 16. Man hands were actually a man's hands. In the Bizarro. Jerry, viewers were shocked by a scene in which Jerry dated a beautiful woman. Everything was perfect until she cracked lobster shells with huge, rough, masculine hands. In an instant, the dream girl became a hilarious nightmare. What few knew, the man hands didn't belong to actress Krista Allen. They were actually a man's hands. The man was James Reckart, a former classmate of Jerry Seinfeld in acting class. When a pair of hands was needed, big, rough and unsettling enough to make sitcom history, Jerry immediately thought of Reckart and personally selected him as the hand stunt double. In close-up shots, Reckart held beers, crushed cookies and snapped lobster claws with a strength mismatched to the character's delicate appearance. Reckart later admitted he was extremely proud of his role, as the hands, repeatedly referring to it online as his 15 minutes of fame. 15. Elaine's father terrified the crew. From the script, Alton Beaners, Elaine's father, was written to radiate menace. Larry David drew inspiration from writer Richard Yates, the father of Monica Yates, his ex-girlfriend. One evening visiting Yates's house was a tense experience, sitting across from a gruff, quiet man whose presence was almost suffocating. Season 2's The Jacket episode closely mirrored this real-life memory. But the fear for the cast came not from the script, but the actor Lawrence Tierney. Famous for playing Joe in Reservoir Dogs, Tierney was known in real life for being hot-tempered, unpredictable, and tough. On the Seinfeld set, he carried that mobster aura fully. Jerry, Julia, and Jason all felt tense whenever he appeared, as if the line between acting and reality had vanished. Matters escalated when Jerry discovered Tierney had stolen a carving knife from the set kitchen and hid it under his coat. When questioned, he just smirked, leaving the cast stunned. Jason Alexander later admitted, "Lawrence Tierney scared the hell out of all of us. The intensity was so real that the crew decided never to bring Alton Beaners back, even though he was originally intended as a recurring character. Ultimately, he appeared only once." 14. Actor went missing and passed out during filming Sandy Barron, the actor who played Jack Klompus, Morty Seinfeld's arch nemesis, suddenly vanished during preparations for the episode The Money. In Season 8's episode, Jerry wants to buy back his parents' Cadillac from Jack, but it almost didn't happen. One day during filming, Barron didn't show up on set and was discovered unconscious in the parking lot. The writers scrambled to come up with an emergency plan, rewrite the script, even consider replacing Jack Klompus, a character that had been the source of countless legendary confrontations with Jerry's father. It seemed like the end of Barron's Seinfeld career. But just a few days later, the unexpected happened. He woke up from his coma and, with his characteristic toughness, declared he would return, even though his body hadn't fully recovered. This also became his final appearance on the show. 13. Numerology made Seinfeld stop at season 9. There are two unusual and surprising reasons why Seinfeld stopped at season 9, despite being at the height of its fame. At the time, NBC offered an unprecedented deal, $5 million per episode if Jerry agreed to do a 10th season. That totaled $110 million for just one more year on air. Yet Jerry Seinfeld declined. He didn't want the show to overstay its welcome and lose its essence. For him, Seinfeld's success wasn't just about money or ratings, it had to end at the right moment. The second reason was personal. Jerry explained that his decision involved his love for the number 9. He believed 9 symbolized completeness and fulfillment in numerology. People ask, why not 10? But 10 is boring. 9 is my number, he said. For him, stopping at season 9 was the perfect way to end the show. What do you think of this reason? Would you have wanted Seinfeld to continue? Share your thoughts below. 12. Jerry and Elaine weren't really close off-screen. On-screen, Jerry and Elaine were ex-lovers, with their ambiguous past fueling countless jokes. But in real life, the relationship between Jerry Seinfeld and Julia Louis-Dreyfus was entirely different. Julia had been married to Brad Hall since 1987, long before Seinfeld aired, and the marriage remains strong to this day. While Jerry was known for his high-profile relationships in tabloids, he and Julia never crossed professional boundaries. Interviews reveal they weren't particularly close off-screen. Behind the scenes, Julia Louis-Dreyfus didn't hesitate to challenge the creative team, often opposing scripts where Elaine was written in a one-dimensional or overly sexualized way. In recent years, the distance between them became more apparent. Julia openly disagreed with Jerry's views on political correctness in comedy, showing they didn't share the same worldview. They still appear together at anniversary events. Jerry praises Julia openly, and Julia acknowledges Seinfeld was a launchpad for her career. But their relationship always remained strictly professional, with a hint of mutual respect, no more. 11. No artificial laugh track. Unlike most sitcoms of the time, which used pre-recorded laughter to force audience reactions, Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld went the opposite way. They insisted that laughter must come from a live studio audience, reacting directly to each line. When NBC objected, worried that audiences weren't used to awkward silence if a joke failed, Larry replied, "If it's not funny, it's not funny. That's it." This made the Seinfeld set a lively battleground. Each scene was filmed in front of hundreds of audience members to see if people really laughed or stayed silent. Jason Alexander recalls a moment during The Marine Biologist. The initial ending didn't get any laughs. Larry and Jerry immediately rewrote the lines, inserting, "The sea was angry that day, my friends." Jason had to memorize it on the spot, and when he delivered it, the laughter was so intense that the crew had to pause to let the audience calm down. NBC, however, still didn't fully concede. They required a minimal laugh track to fill in outdoor scenes where live audiences couldn't be present. But the Seinfeld team stood firm. If a scene didn't get laughs, it would be rewritten or left as is. What do you think of the producer's decision? Share your thoughts in the comments. 10. The show was never intended to be a show about nothing. Seinfeld is known as the show about nothing, but that was never the original intention. In a 2014 Reddit Q&A, Seinfeld admitted that both he and co-creator Larry David were surprised by how widely the phrase, "the show about nothing," spread. The goal of the show, the real goal, when Larry and I went to NBC in 1988, was to show how a comedian gets his material, Seinfeld explained. Yet a joke in season 4, when Jerry and George failed to pitch a show about nothing to TV executives, became famous. The show about nothing was just a joke in an episode years later, and even to this day, Larry and I are amazed that people took it as a description of the show, because for us, it's the exact opposite, Jerry said. 9. Jerry Seinfeld's apartment constantly changed numbers. If you pay close attention, Jerry Seinfeld's apartment, the center of countless arguments, jokes, and disasters, holds a quirky secret. The number kept changing. In the pilot, the door clearly shows 8, as if Jerry were a regular high-rise tenant. By season 1, the number became 411. In season 2, chaos ensued as it switched between 3A and 5A,
wears a heavy coat and carries
viewers
around a
feel
large
like Jerry moved repeatedly with no explanation. Finally, from season 3 onward, 5A was permanently established, becoming the legendary address in fans' minds. 8. Jerry Seinfeld refused $5 million per episode for season 10 to maintain quality. At the height of Seinfeld's success, NBC was willing to do anything to keep Jerry for another season. They offered an insane deal, $5 million per episode for 22 episodes in season 10, $110 million just to get Jerry to sign for one more year. An unprecedented sum in TV history, enough to make anyone nod instantly. But when NBC executives awaited a handshake, Jerry stunned the room. He said no. Jerry's reason surprised many. He admitted he had no life, was unmarried, had no children, and, most importantly, didn't want the show to drag on until it faded. For Jerry, artistry lay in restraint, knowing when a joke should end, recognizing the point before the audience gets bored. A massive sum could buy almost anything, but not Seinfeld's sharpness. This decision, of course, shocked NBC, but it allowed Seinfeld to exit in glory, ending at season 9 while audiences still craved more. Instead of becoming a long, drawn-out series forgotten by viewers, Seinfeld remained a legend, a monument that ended at the perfect time. Refusing $110 million wasn't just shocking. It was a rare proof that sometimes letting go is the only way to preserve a masterpiece. 7. George Costanza actually sued Seinfeld for $100 million. The character George Costanza, the bald, petty, overly anxious friend in Seinfeld, once shook the real world with a shocking lawsuit. The man behind it was none other than Michael Costanza, a former classmate of Jerry's at Queen's College. Michael insisted that George was based on him, his bald head, stocky build, and obsessive habits regarding parking spots and bathrooms. He believed Jerry and Larry David had used his image without permission, turning it into a joke for millions of viewers. Michael didn't just talk, he acted. In 1998, he filed a lawsuit against Jerry, Larry David, and NBC, demanding $100 million in damages. The astronomical figure stunned Hollywood. In the lawsuit, he claimed invasion of privacy and defamation. Michael even wrote a book titled The Real Seinfeld, as told by the real Costanza, listing countless uncanny similarities between himself and George, as if to trap Jerry with undeniable evidence. However, the courts did not side with him. Judges ruled the case was time-barred, and Seinfeld was a work of fiction that did not use Michael's name or likeness for commercial purposes. The lawsuit was dismissed outright, and Michael and his lawyer were even penalized for frivolous litigation. 6. Kramer was inspired by Larry's eccentric neighbor. Kramer was actually based on a real person, Kenny Kramer, Larry David's eccentric neighbor. When Seinfeld became a hit, Kenny was not happy that his name and image were used without compensation. He threatened to sue unless he was paid, or at least credited. NBC eventually paid Kenny a consulting fee to avoid legal issues, though he never officially participated in production. Kenny didn't give up. He created his own real-life tour in New York called Kramer's Reality Tour, parodying and mimicking the show. Larry David reportedly found it irritating, calling it cheesy self-promotion. Yet Seinfeld itself parodied this absurdity. Remember Jay Peterman's reality bus tour? That was based on Kenny's real-life tour. To this day, the original Kramer is still touring. 5. NBC hated this episode so much it almost didn't air. Believe it or not, one of Seinfeld's most famous episodes, where the gang waits endlessly for a table at a Chinese restaurant, almost never aired. NBC hated it. Executives complained that nothing happened, everything took place in one location, and it was boring. Larry David fired back immediately. The nothing happening was the point. This was the show's first real experiment in what he called a nothing episode. 22 minutes of waiting, no subplot, no flashbacks, no costume changes. The network wanted to cut or add scenes, but Larry and Jerry refused. They insisted that if it didn't work, they were willing to walk away from the show. Ultimately, NBC relented, and the episode aired. It instantly became a fan favourite, proving the show's strange and risky format could succeed. Today, it's even used in screenwriting classes to illustrate how simple dialogue can create tension, drama, and humour, simply by doing nothing. As a Seinfeld fan, what do you think of this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. 4. A scrapped episode called The Bet Few Fans know that Seinfeld once had an episode written, started production, and then cancelled just 20 minutes in. It was titled The Bet, also known as The Gun. The plot involved Elaine wanting to buy a handgun for self-defense, and in a shocking scene, she points it at Jerry saying, "Do you want Kennedy or McKinley?" During the table read, Julia Louis-Dreyfus jumped up in protest, Jason Alexander refused, and director Tom Cherones flatly said, "We cannot do this." Even though the crew had started setting the scene, hiring extras, and preparing the set, production was halted. Episode writer Larry Charles admitted he tried to find humour in the darkness, but the darkness was too overwhelming, it swallowed everything. After just one session, the bet was scrapped, becoming the only Seinfeld episode deleted before airing. Its slot was filled with another script, The Phone Message, written by Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld in just 48 hours. That episode focused on George leaving a bizarre voicemail for his girlfriend. 3. The rule that made the show successful: no hugging, no learning. The survival principle behind Seinfeld's success was set from day one. Larry David said, "No hugging, no learning." While most American sitcoms included warm moments, character growth, and moral lessons, Seinfeld coldly refused all of it. No sentimental endings, no character development, no tearful reconciliations, just shamelessness, selfishness, and the endless loop of bad habits repeated over and over. This created a dark, unprecedented style of comedy. This iron rule turned the show into a massive social experiment. What happens if people never learn from their mistakes? George might realise he's foolish, but seconds later, he plunges into another ridiculous situation. Jerry remains indifferent in the face of disaster. Elaine and Kramer never learn from their falls or failures. They stay themselves, unchanging, and the audience cannot stop laughing. 2. 76 million people watched the finale of Seinfeld. The Seinfeld finale, aired on May 14, 1998, drew over 76 million viewers, making it one of the most watched television events in US history. Yet, despite the massive audience, the episode sparked controversy and received mixed reactions from both fans and critics. Titled The Finale, it revolved around Jerry, Elaine, George, and Kramer being arrested and tried for violating the Good Samaritan law after witnessing a carjacking without intervening. Many minor characters from previous episodes returned to testify about the group's selfish actions, forcing them to face consequences for past behaviour. This ending, with severe punishment for the main characters, left many viewers dissatisfied, feeling it contradicted the show's usual comedic style. Critics were also lukewarm. Some argued the finale lacked rhythm, was overly long, and unnecessarily moralistic. Jerry Seinfeld later admitted that ending the show with a big moral message wasn't entirely consistent with Seinfeld's humor. Even the cast had mixed feelings. Jason Alexander called it disappointing and cold. Julia Louis-Dreyfus had hoped for a more emotionally satisfying conclusion. Larry David, who returned to write the finale, defended it as true to the show's core. But fans expected something more. What do you think of the Seinfeld finale? Did it meet audience expectations? Share your thoughts below. 1. Jerry Seinfeld gave the cast unique gifts after the final episode. When Seinfeld ended after 9 seasons, Jerry Seinfeld gave the cast a meaningful gift to commemorate the show's conclusion. He presented luxurious Cartier watches engraved with Seinfeld on the back, personally handed to each colleague, a symbolic way to capture the years they laughed together and reached legendary status. Patrick Warburton, who played David Puddy, later revealed the gift. He vividly remembered opening the sleek black box to see Seinfeld glinting on the cool metal face. Considering the show made Jerry one of the wealthiest in entertainment, it was surely a stunning watch. These 20 facts show that Seinfeld was not just a sitcom. It was a cultural phenomenon full of behind-the-scenes stories, humorous details, and unexpected decisions. From Jerry refusing million-dollar contracts to unaired cameos to characters based on real people, everything contributed to a unique and unforgettable series. Have you ever wondered how small, seemingly harmless details can shape an entire plot or character? Or how seemingly random choices carry a philosophy of humor, proportion, and numerology? Share your thoughts below. Thank you for following and exploring these lesser-known Seinfeld secrets with us. If you want to discover more fascinating facts about Hollywood films, subscribe so you don't miss any videos.